I'm Alan Combs. Ron Paul won 4,671 votes at the Iowa straw poll, putting him a close second behind Michelle Bachmann. Dr. Paul joins us now. Congressman, thank you for coming on the program once again. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan. Good to be with you.
Much is being said about, the boom you're having right now and how well you did. And you, last time you were on the show, you said you had to do well in Ames, which you really did. And I don't know if you saw the Daily Show and all the other media saying, wow, you're just, the media is not presenting you the way they should present you. They're not giving you the attention you deserve. Is it the media that's your problem, or is it the Republican Party that would get in the way of you actually getting the nomination?
I think it's the media. I think it's the Republican Party, and I think it's the Democratic Party. Because I sort of put them all together, except for a few good Democrats that I can talk to, like you.
Well,
you're independent-minded, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure the good progressive Democrats, people that I work with, like Bernie Sanders and Kucinich, they get frustrated with the leadership too because of the war issues and all. So I think it's the fact that I stand out so strongly against, current management of government where both parties seem to enjoy it, whether it has to do with the maintaining these wars, endorsement and support for things like the Patriot Act. That's bipartisan. And there's been bipartisan support for a good many years on the Federal Reserve. So these events are really, really challenging, the status quo. And I think it's a combination of all these things. I try real hard not to take it personal.
Yeah, well, you can't do that. You go nuts. But how do you account for the fact that you are having the best political season of your career in terms of, you've done this before, but never with this success. What do you think accounts for that?
Well, just like I said, these various things that have gone on, but, those replays, that was astounding. If I'd have just, I don't pay as much attention to this as, the people who work in the campaign strategy, but when I came across that thing with Jon Stewart, I was pretty surprised that, it wasn't like he was making this up. I think he was quoting a few people.
When you saw video after video, everybody saying the same thing, and then where they even left you out of, they skipped right over you, and went from second place to fourth place and ignored you being in third place in one particular contest. It's got to, on one hand, I guess you can laugh at it, but it's got to irk you at some point and frustrate you.
Yeah, I always look for a positive side of it, and I keep thinking that, the progress we've made is fantastic. It's the fact that we're making such progress that they have to do this to us, because I sincerely do believe that if we, really controlled the debate and kept making this progress, we are a threat to a lot of people.
Do you think you have a shot at the nomination?
I do, but I think it's a tough one, and I understand what the odds are, but I think you really do. Not so much in a conventional year, but we don't live in a conventional time. Just think of what's been going on. And I'm in a position where, tonight I was on Larry Kudlow's show, and boy, they concluded, even after I got off, I heard him talking, he's right. We do need, a strong currency. There's good points to be made about this. So, no, I think the time is right for what I'm talking about. The people are, I think, with me more than the parties. I think the large majority of American people say, why are we spending trillions of dollars overseas? Why do we print money and give it out to the banks? On and on. I just think I'm on the right side of these issues.
Well, that'd be the issue, is that the problem may be you're with every time you're on, and even the night you're not on, I get calls saying, why aren't you paying attention to Ron Paul? I tell people, we have Ron Paul on the show all the time. What are you talking about? But because you've got a loyal, passionate following ahead of where the Republican Party is, which begs the question now, would you consider running as a third party or independent candidate if you don't get the nomination as a Republican?
Well, before I answer that, I want to confirm that you have had me on. And I think sometimes you ask me to come on, and, I'm pretty busy. So
yeah, I know, but you're always very kind to us, and we appreciate it.
Always there. So about a third party, I met you in 1988, and that was a struggle to me. And I say this very sincerely because I've said it many times, and that is that we're supposed to go overseas and spread democracy and our goodness, and if they don't do it, we use guns and we take over and we have nation building, even in countries that are completely different than us, and we're going to teach them the American way of democracy. And yet in this country, I'm careful when I use the word democracy, but the democratic process, we do know that, if we're going to elect leaders, it has to be through a democratic process. But it's not really a fair process here. In the third-party candidates, they don't get in the debates. It's much harder to raise the money. They can't get on ballots. When I was doing that in '88, I didn't raise a lot of money, but maybe $1.5 million, $2 million. But over half was spent just trying to get on ballots.
Right.
And all our energy was getting on. And there are some countries around the world that make it a lot easier for that. So I think we're a little bit hypocritical, and I think we have a policy that makes no sense when we use force and pretend that we're the saints and we're going to teach other people about democracy. I tell people when they bring these resolutions up about lecturing other countries, I said, well, when we have a perfect system here, when we protect civil liberties here, then maybe we can lecture others. But our responsibility is to have a good political system here and good civil libertarian protection, and then maybe we can feel free to lecture others.
In 1988, you ran as a libertarian. At that time, the Libertarian Party was perhaps not as well known or as prominent as it is now. I just wonder if now, since times are different, could you have some success? Your campaign manager, Jesse Benton's quoted in The Hill today as saying, we don't deal in absolutes, but there's virtually zero chance he has, meaning you, no plans, no interest. It's as close to zero as it can be without absolutely ruling it out, meaning a third-party run. Do you concur with what Jesse said?
Yeah, and he's the campaign spokesman, and he's usually pretty darn good, and I would say that's pretty close. I haven't thought about it. I don't expect to, but I might have used slightly different words. But I don't plan to do that. They talked to me a lot last go around. It would. No, the only other thing I've considered, Alan, is not so much if the Republicans give me too much trouble, I just might run in the Democratic primary. How would that be?
You put a challenge out to President Obama.
Yeah, how about that? Wouldn't that stir up?
That would really stir things up. Would you ever consider doing that?
No, not really, but somebody's going to pick this up and say Ron Paul's considering running in the Democratic primary.
But you know that in many cases you have much compatibility with many Democrats, many of whom would embrace you as just like many Republicans do. You know many of your positions mirror what I think some Democrats ought to be standing for.
Oh, absolutely, and we get a lot. When I get my rallies going, I always mention about the Democrats, and inevitably they'll come up after me. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Democrat. But the biggest challenge, they'll say, "Yeah, I like it. I like his position on civil liberties, and we do need an anti-war president, and I know he'll stick to his guns." But then they'll say, "Yeah, but what about the entitlement system?" But my approach to that shouldn't be too threatening to anybody because I'm trying to save the entitlement system. At least to work our way out from it. So if I could save a lot of money from overseas and some of these other boondoggles and corporate subsidies, that would actually protect, some of these benefits. I say that if we, for instance, when we were building that $1 billion embassy in Baghdad, I said my approach to this would be to cut the $1 billion out, put $500 million to the debt, and put $500 million to taking care of the people that we have made dependent. I don't agree that that's a good way of doing it, but to work our way out, I would do that. And I've talked to Dennis Kucinich about this. And
I'd love to see a Kucinich poll, ticket. Have you thought about that? I mean, that would really be something.
No, not seriously.
But are you any more out of sync with Democrats than you are with Republicans?
No, I think it's 50-50 in many ways because Republicans get very nervous when I say that they shouldn't support the Patriot Act and we should protect the Fourth Amendment. And when I want to protect the First Amendment, sometimes they don't like that. And if you don't want to put people in jail for, drinking raw milk and things like that, sometimes they get nervous. Of course, the war on drugs is my big issue too.
Yeah.
I think the war on drugs is a disaster. We've spent since Nixon actually started it in modern times, we've spent well over $1 trillion for that. And I'm sure you probably don't think it has done a whole lot of good.
No, I'm with you on drugs. I think that I'm with you on that issue. Do you see yourself? Well, you're retiring from Congress at the end of this term.
Right.
Do you see yourself ever running for office again after this particular campaign?
No, I don't think so. But I have to first decide whether I'm going to be up for re-election, in 4 years or not. So I'm going to concentrate on this election.
Under this presidential campaign. But let's say by some quirk of fate you are not the next president of the United States. Would you continue to seek the presidency down the road, or would this be your last campaign?
I wouldn't think so. I'd rather be a talk show host or something like that.
That's a terrible, terrible life, sir. I got to tell you, it's not. We don't need the competition. But I bet you do very well. I bet you would do very well in this profession. What is your next move? Now you've done Ames. What's the next thing you need to accomplish to move your campaign forward?
Well, in my mind, what I think about is I continue to do the same thing that I've done for 30 years, and that is, and the term that we use, that I use personally and ended up in our organization, is campaigning for liberty, because I believe that is the essence of what makes a great country and makes for prosperity and for peace. But I'll continue to do that, but we still are targeting Iowa, and tomorrow, I'm still in Texas right now, but tomorrow I'll leave for New Hampshire, opening up our state headquarters there, and our organization is very strong. We have several dozen state reps that have endorsed me up there. It's a great libertarian-leaning state.
I've literally got 20 seconds. We'll get cut off. What's your take on Rick Perry?
He needs to be asked a lot of questions about what really has gone on in Texas. Yeah. So I hope the media does ask him.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Appreciate your time tonight, as always.
Very good.
Thank you. We're coming right back at 877-4-ALLEN, 877-367-2526.